Good evening to all of you present here. I welcome you all to the first interview session for Optima. I am Shivali Dwara, the editor-in-chief for the magazine, and today we are honored to be joined by Dr. Subodh Mathur. Dr. Subodh is an economist who completed his PhD from MIT. He also has 29 years of work experience as a policy consultant at World Bank. Apart from that, he has also served as an adjunct professor of economics both at Johns Hopkins University and American University. We are very honored to have you here, sir. So, all of us as aspiring economists are willing to learn a lot from you and also like to know what your experience has been as an economist. So, let's go ahead with the questions. So, before we deep dive into your work, what I wanted to know is why did you particularly choose economics? Because you have such a diverse experience and background, and you also decided to pursue a PhD, which seems like a Herculean task to most. So, what exactly made you want to pursue a field in economics?
Okay, I think the issues will sound familiar to young people today. In my time, when I was just finishing high school, we didn't have 11th and 12th, as we had only up till class 11. If you were a good student, there was indeed a lot of pressure on you to go into science or engineering or medical. So the same thing as you feel today, engineering or medical, all right? Medical was out because you have to take biology to do that. So biology was something that I didn't feel I could do, so I was out of that. But I was in PCM, and I was a good student. I used to get good marks. And so people would assume, okay, you're going, even back then, I'm now talking end of 1966, the pressure was, okay, apply to IIT. Those days we didn't have this JEE. It was just an application process, apply to IIT. And there were no formal coaching classes as such, but our school used to end in December, and the exam was in all our exams were done in December. We were free till the next time the college started, which was 6 months. And so the school would informally run some IIT coaching classes, and there was pressure to join. But I didn't want, I was a bit lazy in that sense. I didn't want to work hard in IIT and be in a lab. I wanted to have a freer life, let's put it this way. Economics and the arts and all were known to my family rather well. There was no issue that, look, you can't do arts. My father had an MA in history from St. Stephen's College way back in the 1930s. So there was no issue that you are going to do arts, what's wrong with you? Arts was there. My older brother had already done his MA in economics. So economics and arts and history, political science, engineering, we had a large family in which all these things were known. So there was no issue as to why you are going to do economics. All right, so could have also have done history, but economics was at that time an emerging field. And there were very many interesting things happening. Even I was in Jaipur, but not a big town at all at that time. But there were many interesting things happening even in Jaipur. Perhaps the most interesting thing was that, in the 1960s, the US ambassador to India was Professor Kenneth Galbraith, who was a professor at Harvard. And he had contacts with the economics department in Jaipur, and he was the ambassador. So Jacqueline Kennedy came to Jaipur to be a tourist. So he also came. He had to come. He's the US ambassador. He has to come with the first lady. So he came. And so I used to live very close to the university campus. My brother had already done his MA. So it was news. Oh, John Kenneth Galbraith has come to Jaipur, right? And we hear economics talk. It was not like we didn't hear economics talk. And so it was not difficult to take the decision to do a BA in economics. It was prestigious, okay? It's harder to do than to do. It wasn't all that mathematical at that time. And when I went to Delhi University, I did get admission into Delhi University. You could take a minor, what that subsidiary it used to be called at that time, not minor, subsidiary in mathematics. and a major or the main course in economics. But as I said, I was not a very academically hard-working person. So I said, hey, I can't do mathematics. This is too much work. Because the marks also didn't count for your degree in the end, right? I just took history as my subsidiary, just showing that it was a desire to have a not so hardworking academic life. Anyway, did well anyhow in the BA economics. Natural next step was to go to MA. Delhi School of Economics was right there. And again, the competition was not so stiff, but by God, the courses were as stiff as they are now. So it was a huge wake-up call because my friends and I continued our lazy life, and we all did very badly in the first few tests. It was a horrible jolt. What is this? We don't understand a word because we missed so many classes that we had no idea what they were teaching anyway. So it was a pretty bad experience. But all that meant was that we finally woke up and started working hard and managed to get reasonable MA final grades. Okay, there were other students who had come from other parts of India who were much more keen to get good grades. So it was impossible to compete with them because they were hardworking. I said, what the hell? I'm not going to be a hardworking student. I can't compete with all these people. They're going to get the top job. Okay, so you finish your MA in economics, and there were only 3 options at that time for somebody like me and for most of my friends. There were only 2 realistic options. There were no corporate jobs really. Very, very few corporate jobs. There was nothing like what you have now. So you could do UPSC exams, which was well known to my family and certainly well known in my college. Everybody was doing UPSC exams, and many of the leading people in the IAS. My father himself was an IAS officer. So it was UPSC was taken as something, okay, fine, you can do it. The other option was to do a PhD in economics. And the third option was to be a writer, which was very risky. Even I didn't believe that I was good. And how would I convince anybody that I'm good? Maybe not. So I decided to go back to Jaipur for 1 year. I had a job. I did get a teaching job at St. Stephen's College, but I said, the Delhi life is not for me. Let me go back to Jaipur for 1 year. And I did go back to Jaipur. I did get a teaching job at the university there. The head of the department was Professor Raj Krishna, the famous man who coined the term Hindu growth rate of 3.5%. And he later on became a member of the Planning Commission. So it was a good place to be. It was not like you were isolated and left out. And it was walking distance from my home, so life was comfortable and easy. And I did spend the time and learned calculus on my own because I never learned. So I had to learn. But by the way, the whole thing, if you want to learn calculus, is you should forget differential calculus because it has no meaning. There's no intuitive meaning in differential calculus. It's just a formula. That's why it's boring. What is it that you are doing anyway? As economists, you may think, okay, it's the marginal cost. The first derivative is the marginal cost. But hardly worth hassling yourself with calculus to know that the first derivative is marginal. It's integral calculus, which was the first calculus that was created. That is the real intuitive. So I used a book written by a fellow called Apostol, which started with integral calculus. And that opened my eyes to the beauty of calculus. This is something worth learning. Anyway, so then the choice was either to take the UPSC, which I could prepare from home in Jaipur, or I said, if I can get into a top place for a PhD, I'll do that. Now, in those days, we had no knowledge of what is taught anywhere because there was no way to know. There was no way anybody, and certainly, you have to take a GRE test to get into a PhD program outside in the US. I'd never seen a GRE test in my life when I took it. No sample, no preparation, nobody. We were ignorant people. We just took a chance, right? And anyway, so all that didn't matter much. Anyway, I did get into MIT, which we knew was the top place in the world at that time, and still is now is sharing it with Chicago and Harvard, but at that time it was clearly number one. That we knew because everybody knew that Paul Samuelson was there, and he should have been the first one to get the Nobel Prize in Economics, but they gave it to a European first, started in Sweden. But anyway, Samuelson was the king of economics, and he was the key person at MIT. So it was great to go to MIT. My mother was born just before 1920. At that time, literacy rate for women in India was 1%. But she could teach me algebra in English. So, with a family background like that, what are you missing? Nothing. You have the privilege of education, though not of much money, but you have the privilege of education and learning being in the air in the family. Nobody said you have to study or do your exams or anything. So it's just assumed that whatever it is, you will do well. You just do it. Don't waste our time on these trivial things. It's okay. When your exams are, you take care, you do everything yourself. All right, go ahead. So, and there was indeed a lot of learning in our family. I say, even a few years back, if you read my family's internal WhatsApp, you can get a BA degree. We only discuss issues. We don't write to each other about our families, So that was it. So I did get into MIT, and it was a great life there. Of course, it was a big change, culture change, social change, learning change. Everything was 100% different. And we were not prepared for it in any way by what we had done in India, except that we could learn whatever it is that they were going to teach. So that family preparation and the college preparation, not so much in the courses, but the Delhi School of Economics courses were good and rigorous, and they prepared us quite well. So there it is. That's how I decided to be an economist, because it worked.
Yeah, sir, that actually is so fascinating to hear that journey, and hearing about your journey with PCM and not wanting to continue engineering because you did not want to take up something hard is so relatable, and it hits home. But anyways, so now, as you also have so much of experience as a policy consultant at World Bank, I also want to know about your work in energy projects, especially in Africa. So could you share some key takeaways or lessons which were learned from your involvement in the rural electrification project in Tanzania, a very brief explanation?
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to share it. Okay, so but I have to first back up a little bit. The World Bank didn't hire me because I knew anything about rural electrification, or because I knew anything about Africa or anything. Nobody hires me for what I know. Only they hire me for my ability to think. And this was right from the very start, that even when the first time the World Bank hired me as a consultant, it was clear that I don't know anything about what they're doing. And I told the person who was the team leader that I don't know anything about this topic. So please don't complain later on that, I lied to you and I became your consultant. I don't know anything about your topic. But he said, no, it's okay. You are highly recommended by somebody. So it's fine. If you know nothing, it's okay. You will think it through. You will learn it. I said, yes, I will. So when actually my boss also one day, I used to have consulting work in the US. And that was highly paid. So again, not wanting to work very hard, I used to work maybe 2 or 3 days a week as a consultant and make good money and have 2 or 3 days just family time. Right? At the time I'd married and kid, family time. And I used to dabble a little bit at the World Bank, but one day one of the guys there said to me very bluntly that, look, stop wasting your time in this stupid business that you are doing in the US. I said, what's so stupid? It makes good money. I don't have to work very hard. He said, I know, but you are not born for this, Subodh. He said, you are not born for this. You were born to make an impact on the world. So why don't you come and do some work that makes an impact? So I agreed. So we did the rural electrification in Indonesia using solar systems in 1995. I designed that project, which we copied into Sri Lanka and now has been copied into Bangladesh. And there are 6 million families in rural Bangladesh with solar panels in their home. It's the world's largest project. I did the financial design, the subsidy design, and the scope of the project. One of our team members did the technical side, and his technical specs are today the specs that are used worldwide. So we were really very, very innovative and pioneering. And that was my job, to do something that had not been done, about which we knew nothing. But we would go into the villages in Indonesia and we would look at it. And the senior managers at the World Bank then said to my boss that, look, you have to move to Africa to do something there. And he said, Subodh just refuses to take a job and he's a consultant, but he has to move with me. They said, fine, you can do that. But Africa is east, I'm not talking about Egypt and, North Africa. I'm talking about Sub-Saharan Africa. Other countries are far behind India. They're really much less education. They're really much more, what should I say, things move very slowly there. It's very hard to get results. Not easy to get results no matter how clever or innovative you are. No matter what you do, it is very tough to get results because there's no place like Delhi University in Tanzania or in Uganda or in Kenya that knowledge, when Botswana became independent in the late 1960s, it had one person with a BA degree, that's all. So you can't imagine that, C.V. Raman got a Nobel Prize, but it's not there. Okay, so you are working in very different and difficult conditions, and everything costs much more than it costs in Asia. And nothing was well run at that time, and it was difficult to get results. But so that made it a bit difficult to, and you can't go into a bank like you could go in Asia. There are no real banks at that time. So, but also on the other hand, the poverty which this depicted is also not there. Because in the rural areas, there's enough fruit and fish readily available. Okay. It's not, the density is very low. Like in Zambia, it's only 10 people per square kilometer. So, they have enough food from just the fruit. You drive in Mozambique, there are mangoes lying on the roadside. But there's nobody to pick them. There's no population density in the rural areas of Africa. Very, very low. Unlike India, which is dense even in the rural areas, Asia, there's no density. And so there's not that much, there are few countries in which you do have starvation, etc. problem, which is highlighted, but it's not the case. Like in Nairobi airport, one day, I was there in the evening, I was freezing to death. It's cold. Because it's in the plateau, it's at an elevation, it's very different conditions. So you have to get really used to very different ideas than you have when you go in. And it is difficult to find the human resources that you have in other countries. So everything takes longer. But in the last few years, there is considerable progress. Internet is there. In the initial days, we used to go to rural Africa. It used to be $10 a minute to make an international phone call. $10 per minute. It's like, what are you talking about? Free Zoom calls and I think $10 a minute. So you could hardly make a call. But it was possible still to work in those conditions if you gave up your preconceived notions and decided to work with the local people in the conditions that they were in and that they are in. And the development also, you can see that initially, there are two ways to do solar. One is rooftop on everybody's roof. And the other is to have a little centralized location in which you put a mini solar farm, and there's no electricity there. You put a mini farm of panels and you distribute it locally. And initially, I was very much opposed to that idea. I said, look, all this cost of wiring and all, who's going to run it? But in 2015, the World Bank published, no, not 2015, 2016 or so, we published a book on mini grids. Mini grids are small independent systems, and I helped design that idea that, look, finally we can do these. And these are the small towns where there's no electricity and it's not going to come. People are using diesel generators, or they are using some other way for lighting or for running a grain mill or something like that. So we could move in Africa from just doing rooftop solar, which is not productive at all. It just gives you lights and you can watch TV, and you can't even run an electric iron with them mostly. So it's not very productive, and certainly in a small little factory or whatever it is, you can't have that. So you need the normal AC power, and that you can get with a mini grid system. So that's what the World Bank is now pushing very hard. And I think the success there is coming because the normal electricity supply from the grid has failed to come there. So our success is dependent upon their failure. They should have been there in those small towns already, but they aren't there. There's enough money in these small towns to pay for electricity. People are not that poor. Some of them are businesses, so they will pay. So we could do these, and I think the World Bank is quite happily and willingly doing it. At the same time, I must say that even now, it is difficult to reach results, difficult to get results, very tough. India is much easier, Asia is much easier to get results than in Africa. Things are slow. Everything is at a little slower level. So this, I think, is the main lesson, that Africa takes time. And also the political systems are not mature. One of my rules is that a country is politically mature if it has a living former head of the government leading a normal life, which we take for granted in India. The chief minister gets out, leads a normal life. Prime minister gets out, leads a normal life, right? At one time we had Mr. Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh both alive. No big deal, they're leading a... But in many African countries, the leaders have been there for 20 years, 30 years, and the only way they leave is if somebody has a coup. And that becomes a real problem because the political system is so biased and so unsupportive of people's bottom-up views that it becomes hard. And now let me add one more point. The biggest disappointment is South Africa. South Africa became independent thanks to Mandela, and Mandela was indeed a great man. We were staying in a hotel in Mozambique. His wife was from Mozambique. He quit after one term, and we saw him just walking across the lawn. And people were standing up to cheer him on. He was great. But the leaders after that have really messed it up. So this is a problem in Africa, governance. I was there from 1998, and there were reports that told the government that unless you take some actions, you will have electricity shortages in 2008. The government took no action. And indeed, there were electricity shortages in 2008, and they are still there today. They cannot find they have the technical skills, but they don't have the governance, as we call it. In economics, we call it governance, the ability of the government and the institutions in that country to perform. In India, we have NTPC, which used to be National Thermal Power Corporation. It's one of the largest generators of electricity. It's world class. And the power company in South Africa, Eskom, was better than NTPC when we first went. It was very good. But over time, you don't appoint the right managers, you don't hire the right people, and the thing has crumbled to dust, the power company. The airline, South African Airways, used to be world class. It has crumbled to dust. You don't even know how to get on their plane. So the governance and the president, they find $500,000 worth of gold under his mattress in a farmhouse. Says, I put it there for safekeeping. Well, where the heck did you get $500,000 of gold? So too much corruption in South Africa, too much unwillingness to take advantage. And the schools, they were supposed to be improved for the young black children, who were ignored by the whites. It was a very bad colonial rule. But there's no improvement in the schools. So Africa is there are two sad spots in Africa, I think, are Nigeria and South Africa. When you go to Ghana, the first thing they say is, our motto is, we are not Nigeria, they are their neighbors. Please don't confuse us with Nigeria. We do a better job. So the governance is terrible in Nigeria. And they have spent, they suffer from what is called as the curse of natural resource, the oil curse. They had minted so much money by exporting oil, and the money hasn't reached any poor person. It's just been all eaten up by the rich people, the elite at the top. It's a very sad story. People are so qualified and they are so well equipped, but you can't even expect reasonable food in a 5-star hotel there. It is awful at times. Okay, so that's what I would say about Africa. The lessons learned are now it's difficult to get progress for multiple reasons, including corruption and misgovernance at a scale that you don't see in Asia. Just don't see it in Asia. It's much, much worse. At the same time, the resources are there, and the population of sub-Saharan Africa is less than India's. So when you talk of 20, 30, 45 countries, each one is small, you can solve the problems. And they have by now the people. But overall, it remains very difficult to get results. So that's the big lesson, that you have to hold back on your innovation, because you can't just go in and say, look, we are going to do the world's first this thing or that thing. It's not going to work.
So it was absolutely fascinating listening to your experiences in Africa. Nothing beats listening to the ground realities of such products firsthand. Now, the question I was about to ask you already partially covered, but I really wanted to know how you see the impact of the renewable energy project evolving in Africa's rural communities over the next decade.
Oh, the solar power, renewable means solar in rural Africa. You're not going to put up windmills. Solar is actually going very well. And, you can't even charge your cell phone if you don't have electricity. So the cell phone signals were penetrating rural areas without any ability to charge your phone. You don't think about it, right? How will I charge my phone? You don't think about it. Even you go to some villages in India, you think, oh no, I can charge my phone. But in Africa, you can't charge your phone, because there's no electricity in 50-mile radius. How are you going to charge your phone? So somebody would set up a shop with a diesel generator. You would take it there. They would charge it for you. It would cost $1 a charge. Take it in the morning, come back in the evening. So, it's a big hassle. And having that solar panel at your home means, or solar power coming to you, means you can watch TV at night, and you can watch World Cup soccer and Miss World. I mean, look, everybody wants to watch World Cup soccer and Miss World, and in India, World Cup cricket. So you want to watch these things. You become part of the world. So it is a huge joining of young people to the rest of the world. And the new technologies all need electricity. And even way back in 2000, I had gone to some what they call rural health clinics in Uganda, and we were asking, how are you managing without electricity? You can't even give vaccines because vaccines need to have a cold chain. You need to keep them cold. And so they have kerosene fridges. But kerosene is used for other things than the fridge. People use it at their homes. They take it away. So it doesn't work. And if you don't have a light, even if you go to the district headquarters or something like that, they don't have electricity in the lab, then they can't even check the blood sample so well. So electricity and internet go hand in hand. And they are absolutely essential, and they are having a major impact on rural Africa. It is not yet creating incomes. I'm sorry to say that. We could never figure out how to turn that electricity availability into income. So instead we said, okay, where there's already some income being produced, we'll go and give electricity there. Okay, so they are already growing grain. They have a grain mill which is running on diesel, or they have some other activity. Then we can make it into electricity. But out in the rural areas, how will we create income from this introduction of, say, cell phone service, voice, data, Wi-Fi, electricity, bringing the new technologies to the rural areas? We could never figure out how to generate income. In the bigger towns, yes, we could do it. But there was already something happening. But in the rural areas, we could never figure it out, and we just, at least I, conceded defeat and said, look, let's just give light, electricity, and cell phones and be done with it, because I don't know how to generate incomes from these activities, because they're far from anywhere. The population density is low. You can't even run a school because there aren't enough children in a village. So how to create the demand? You need, since you're economists, you need demand density. You need to have, like, in India, you can get delivery of anything, no matter which part of the city you live in, because there's a density of demand, right? You're not the only one who's asking Bolaji to send subsidies. There are so many others who are asking Bolaji to send subsidies. So Bolaji keeps one young fellow there to deliver subsidies to your home. That means there is a density of demand, right? But in rural Africa, there is no density of demand. So if there's no density of demand, what kind of enterprise to set up that will meet the demand? There isn't that much demand. And then there aren't good enough roads to export the product somewhere else. And how do you meet the quality of that? We just gave up. At least I said, look, I fail. I don't know how to do it. Let's not try, because we just don't have a theory, hypothesis, anything. So we couldn't have that impact, but quality of life. So now, talking to you as economists, there are two things: economics of growth and economics of quality of life. Right? And even in India, when I talk about it, I separate the two. Though they are interrelated, but they are conceptually different. So in rural Africa, even in rural Bangladesh, we could only aim for improving the quality of life, which is very important. But we could not aim for increasing incomes. We could not be a growth engine. Today, now we are talking, at least in Asia, of using for the farms AI and drones and collecting the information. The drone flies over, finds out where the crop is dying or is not got enough water. You water that part. You see where it's wilting. You have satellite data. So all that technology, I know, certainly it's coming into Asia. I just talked to people who are bringing it into India. But we could not, at that time, these things were not there, figure out how to increase incomes in rural Africa. As I said, for me, the main constraint was there was no density of demand. You didn't have enough demand to set up an enterprise of any scale. And if you couldn't do that, you couldn't do it. So please keep in mind this difference between quality of life and economic, GDP increase or GDP per capita increase. Because in India, what we're seeing is that quality of life is being, in many ways, brought down in the large cities. Incomes are rising, but the quality of life, you are stuck in traffic for 3 hours. Young people come home from work at 9 p.m. because it's a 1.5 hour commute. So if you work from home, that's great. But if, in place you are in Delhi, the winter, the quality of life is atrocious because of the air pollution. So quality of life forces you to stay indoors in Delhi. Especially if you have a lung issue or any other issue, you can't even go outside. So we could improve the quality of life in rural areas in Africa because it was so broken. Let us put it this way. It was so broken that it was easier to fix it. All right, fine. You get a solar panel, it meets world standards, it will work. You get a battery that meets world standards, it will work. You get lights that meet world standards, they will work. Right? Putting it together is not very complicated. Anybody who knows how to work on fixing a motorcycle or something like that, you can quickly teach. There's a college in near Ajmer where they are teaching illiterate women how to put together solar systems. It's very easy. Do it. It's all modular, just wire it, it's easy. And you have assured lights. Things work because they meet world-class specs. It works. But all that happens is you watch TV at night, you don't get bored out of your mind, and your cell phone works. But where's the income? It isn't there. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Thank you, sir. Listening to this was really eye-opening and fascinating. I'm intrigued to know about energizing economic growth in Ghana and about making the power and petroleum sector rise to challenge. Looking back at the report findings from 2013, how do you think Ghana's energy sector has evolved since then? Has any of your recommendations been implemented successfully?
No. The government has actually messed it up completely, and the governance, which was very good in Ghana, and as I said, they always used to say we are not Nigeria. The macroeconomics came out so bad. Okay, so what happened in Ghana was that a foreign company found oil near Ghana. Ghana and most countries don't have the technology themselves to extract the oil from offshore. This is offshore. Right? They don't have the ability to do it. So it's some foreigner who's exploring the area. Even in India, we let out the areas to be explored. And then they say, okay, we think we have found oil. We will spend our money to further discover it, and then we will put in our own money to pump it out. But since it's your property, we will share the profits with you. So there's an agreement, and there's sudden big inflow of money into the country. So it's an exogenous inflow of foreign exchange because they're paying you in foreign exchange. So the question was how to use this money so that it doesn't get wasted right away. So they had hired me the World Bank had hired me as a consultant to go there and tell them that, look, this is how you should set it up so that the money is available as the incomes flow from the oil. It can be really a big thing for Africa and for Ghana. And the money is not wasted because Nigeria was wasting all of its money. Not wasting, but hardly using it properly. So they agreed, we wrote the report, they said we will implement it, but in the end, the money led to such a macroeconomic crisis that they actually had to get an IMF loan. So far from it being a blessing, where the economy would be propelled forward if they had implemented the recommendations, they actually went into a tailspin and crashed. Going to the IMF is the last resort, and the economy crashed, the money was wasted. So this is what I'm saying, governance is a real difficult issue. We complain about governance in India, but when you look at Africa, you find it's completely different. They didn't implement anything at all. It's a real disappointment, because they had done a very, very good job of rural electrification. By themselves, with a little bit of help, they had done a great job of extending the main electricity lines to many of the villages, and there were just a few areas left where we could do solar, and that was more of a pure subsidy operation than anything else in just a few islands of Ghana. But the main issue in Ghana was how to use this oil money, which is coming into the economy. How should it be invested? And not just today, it should be invested over a period of time so that you develop the economy sustainably, not in terms of environment, but in terms of economic growth over time. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. And I was no longer involved in Ghana after that. My main focus had shifted to mini grids of solar, and Ghana didn't need those, because Ghana had extended the electricity lines quite reasonably by African standards. So they didn't need solar systems at all. As I said, in other places we are putting solar systems because the main electricity lines had not reached, but in Ghana they had. So, and Ghana also was very peaceful. They didn't have any of the tribal problems that you have in other African countries, though they had separate tribes. But the famous tribal issues in Rwanda in the 90s, and always in Ghana, Uganda, Tanzania is also peaceful. But Ghana was very well put together, running well, a lot of hope. But in the end, the failures were very high, and I don't know all the details, but it was a big disappointment that they just, instead of becoming a positive, it became a negative. So governance is key. Governance, we tend not to think about it too much in India because we are a little better off, though we could do much more. But it's nothing comparable to many of the countries that I have seen. I mean, as I said, South Africa disappointment, Nigeria disappointment, Ghana socially peaceful, but economically just crashed for no good reason. Just bad macroeconomic management. Okay, next please.
Yeah, sir, the entire project in Ghana sounds really incredible. So I was going through the GEF solar home system projects, and I wanted to ask, how have the basic features of sustainable rural PV market projects have evolved since your initial study in 1998 to 1999? Are there any new features that have emerged as crucial?
I think the main difference is that we have started doing mini grids. To do instead, because it is expensive to put a solar panel in each home. It is expensive. And you don't get conventional electricity, you get DC electricity, which you can run, special appliances, like you need a special TV, you need a DC fridge, you need DC lights. They are available. It's nothing, all our laptops and cell phones, they run on DC power. We plug it into normal AC, but that brick is there. That brick converts that AC to DC. But solar panels give DC power. And so you need the extra cost is imposed on that. So it's much better if you can generate solar power in a central place, convert the electricity. Solar panels give you DC, direct current, and you convert it into normal, which is called AC, air alternating current, and you send it to everybody's home. Then it is cheaper and more efficient, because then they are not constrained. They can buy any appliance they want, which is in the marketplace. So I think the main thing is to get away from rooftop solar. And even in the urban areas of India, people are still supporting rooftop solar. It seems like such a good idea, but I'm not at all enthusiastic about rooftop solar. In India, we are very successful with solar farms, which are large-scale operations, and you put a lot of solar panels in one suitable place. Now, that has its own issues of what happens to the flora and fauna there. Putting them in desert is not such a good idea in many ways. But I think the shift should be away from rooftop solar. Rooftop solar is quite expensive and is certainly not the best idea in the cities, because you think, oh my God, the electricity supply is so unreliable, I'll do rooftop solar. We are still doing rooftop solar in Washington, DC. But I don't like it very much, because it really means that your success depends on the failure of the electricity supply to supply you reliable power. And it's cheap only because it is subsidized. If you look at the costs without the subsidies, the costs are high. And India is very successful at solar farms. I think that is the way to go in the future. But there are some ecological problems with solar farms, which you don't have with rooftop solar. So there is a little bit of balance that has to be met. But, in those days, as I said, I could support solar farms, but today I'm much more ready to support solar farms than to have rooftop solar. It's much better if you can centralize it. Somebody technical can run it, distribute it. It's better. And you can feed it into the grid also. So feed into the grid means you can just supply it to the main power company, and then you don't know whether you're getting solar or what you are getting, though you can figure that out also. So for example, the World Bank says all its electricity is 100% renewable. Many of the universities in the US say all the electricity buys coming from 100% renewable. But it's not because they put panels in the rooftop. Somebody has put solar panels somewhere, and they are buying the electricity from there. So I think, all the museums and all the public institutions in Washington, DC, if you go, they say we are 100% renewable. Our electricity is 100% renewable, not because they have rooftop solar, but because there are solar farms somewhere and they're buying their power from them indirectly through the main power company, but that's a complicated technical issue which we don't need to discuss here. What I'm saying is that if your college wanted to be 100% renewable in the electricity that it buys, it should have a way for it to say, listen, you, the power company, you and I will come to an agreement that I will buy solar power from this solar farm somewhere, and I will be 100% solar or renewable. That option is available in the US easily now. Anybody can say my electricity is 100. So you can support it, and you can say it costs 20% more. I don't care. I'll pay the 20% more, right? I'll pay it because I am for green electricity. And if it's maybe 10% more, fine. Let there be competition among different solar farms, and I will choose the one that I consider good, and I'll buy from them. So I think in my home also, 50%, we are 50% renewable. So 50% of our power comes at home from a renewable source, 50% from an unspecified source. So that's the way the market should evolve, instead of trying to put panels in everybody's home, because it's not going to work, and it's, you have to duplicate the same things everywhere. And you have to change, you have solar panels create DC electricity. We are putting that converter from DC to AC in every home, which is not cost efficient because you don't have the economies of scale. But anyhow, I'm not very involved in solar power these days. My focus has shifted to several other things, but let me answer your questions.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your insights on the evolution of sustainable rural PV project markets. Building on that discussion, I'd like to ask, as someone with extensive experience in this field and with your work on One Goal, Two Paths, what advice would you offer to emerging researchers or policymakers looking to contribute to the agenda of universal energy access and improved cooking solutions in developing regions?
I think it's good, very important to have a good understanding of theory. Because to make things work in the real world, you need good theory and good practice. Many people think theory is meaningless. We are just in good practice. That's not right. You need both good theory and good practice. The first time I designed the subsidy program in Indonesia, first my team member said, "You are mad. How can this be?" I said, "Yes, of course I'm mad, but I'm right." Just because I'm mad, it doesn't mean anything. I'm right. And in the end, they agreed. Okay. Then finally, it went up to the government, and the government, my boss said, "Subodh, the minister is saying no. What is this craziness?" So he says, "Since you have convinced us, you go and tell the minister how this program will work, how this is right." Now, when you go to a minister, you can't pull out a chart from economic theory and show him a page or an equation. The minister is a minister. He has only 2 minutes for you. So at that time, you need to talk practical. Right? And you get only 2 minutes, 3 minutes. After that, the minister is bored of listening to you because they like to talk. They don't like to listen. They like to preach, how politicians are. They talk to you, you don't talk to them. So they are not used to somebody coming and saying, "I'm the expert, you please listen to me." They say, "No, I'm the expert of my country, you listen to me. What you're doing is wrong." So, we don't get much time. You have to have the practice at that time. And like I had gone to one bank also in Indonesia. I said, "Will you please lend some money to people who are in the solar business?" And he said, "No, this doesn't fit our model." I said, "No, it doesn't fit your model, but I'll get you a picture with your president of your country." He says, "In that case, I will do it in my special projects." So you have to have the theory and you have to have the practice. So a practice you get only by going out there and looking and talking to people. Listen to them. Spend time with them. Don't go and talk there. Listen. Just listen. I'll give you a very specific example. One of the things we did in Uganda, we had gone to a very remote area. When we landed there in a small plane, there was no airport. It's just a grass strip. You land there. There's one pole with a flag showing you wind speed. There's no human. One small building. There's nobody there. So it's a very remote place. But there's a fight between two districts as to where the little dam should be put. Okay, anyway. So we go there, we talk to them, we listen to them. The theory is known where to put. But to make it work, you have to listen to the people. You don't go there and say that this is the theory. They say, "Yeah, but we want it in our place." They say, "No, we want it in our place." What are you going to do? You can't just do the theory. So you have to listen to them. You have to think about what they want. You have to think about a compromise which they will both think is in their favor. So you have to offer them a package which they will accept. And in the end, we did get such a package. Right? So the practice means being in the field, in the difficult conditions, Spend your time there. Look at the situation, assess it, understand it, and don't talk so much. Listen. Let them talk to you because they know the situation there. You're just coming with theory and money, right? And some understanding at a very conceptual level. Maybe you succeeded somewhere, but it won't succeed here. So this is what I would say, that you need the field experience. So, when we used to go out into these villages, I would often say to my team, you people look at the technical side. I'm just going to go and talk to the teachers and other such people and listen to them. What are they saying? Right? What is it that they want? So I asked one, in a very remote island of Indonesia, I asked a teacher, sir, if you get TV here, won't you be worried that your children will watch too much TV? So he says, listen, you do your job, I'll do my job. You bring me electricity, I will control my children. I know how to do it. Why are you trying to do my job? I said, okay, I get it. It's my job to teach children, control them, and whatever it is, it's my job. You get me TV. I will show them, and he said, I will show them what is the parliament in the capital of the country. They have no idea. Because they just read it in books, or I draw one diagram to them, I tell them, they said they have no interest in it because they say, what is all this? We have no clue. If I can show them even one day in class that this is how the parliament is, this is what they are doing, and there's some president giving a speech on TV, they can see it, then I can explain that to them in the class. So you kindly don't worry about my job. You kindly do your job. I say, thank you, sir. I got the idea. So you go and listen. This is what I'm saying. And understand the situation and fit it into your theory so that your theory works in that place. You have to know the theory. Don't be afraid of theory. You have to know it. But whether it will work in that place depends upon how you understand that place. Okay? All right, good. Let's go to the next point.
Okay, sir. So honestly, the thing you said about theory and practice is so fascinating because, like, even us, we sometimes think that what we are learning or what we are reading is not that consequential, but in reality, it does have, I guess, impact. So we've kind of come to the end of all the questions that we thought were good. So the thing that it's so bewildering to me that you remember all these details so specifically, especially even when the work was done so many years ago, because like it kind of tells how much involved you are in the work. It's honestly so amazing to hear about that. Like I'm just shocked, but in the best way possible. So as we kind of come to the end of it, first of all, thank you so much for doing this. It's a huge honor to me. Like when I got the position of editor-in-chief, I wanted to do something that would hopefully allow students to get a little bit more exposure into economics, and you agreeing to do this means a lot to us. So as we wrap this up, I just wanted to ask one question. We'll also be posting this on our YouTube channel. So I guess a lot of aspiring economists are going to watch this. So do you have any advice for them that they can hopefully follow?
Well, no, I don't have any specific advice. Some people will go on into corporate jobs and make good money there, and that's a great thing. We need prosperity in our country. And the time for sacrifice was in your grandfather's time. They have done the sacrifice. You please make money. Okay, please make money. But don't forget others who aren't making the money. Remember your privilege. I mean, I always say to anybody that what is it that I have achieved? My mother was in the 0.75% of the country. So where am I? I'm not in the 0.75%. So remember your background. And both my grandfathers were literate. We have books that they used to read. So I said, listen, you have privilege. Don't worry about it. Make good use of your life, enjoy life, make money. And if you want to be in corporate jobs and all, it's happiness, because we need India to be a prosperous country. We don't want to be a poor country. The time, as I say to young people, my generation and my parents' generation, they did the sacrifice. They did the sacrifice so that you can be better off. Right? And you are better off. Then you will be better off. Make the country more prosperous. Certainly have fun in college, number one. Don't forget that. The only time you'll ever have fun is in college. So please trust me. This is the only time you'll have fun. So enjoy, number one. Number two, go on to get, if you want a career, it's a choice. If you want to have a career, make money, no problem. But don't forget those who are not as privileged as you, who don't have the background in money, education, etc. that you have. And if you can't do anything for them directly, give money to somebody who's willing to do it. And don't just think that the government will do everything. The government can do a lot, but the governments in India, state and national, have reached the limit of what they can do. The rest of it is up to the people, and I've written it clearly in my book that we need new non-profit institutions. And as I do Vidped with young people, many of them are setting them up. There's a woman who just graduated from LSR. She has set up Project Kabil. Project Kabil is teaching underprivileged children. And there's so many other young people doing many things. Support them. They are your generation. You don't have to think NGOs means something that was set up in 1960. NGOs are being set up by your contemporaries. Give them the money if you can. So that is about the only advice I have for you. That number one, I said, make good friends, have fun. Number two, make good money if you can. And number three, don't forget those. There are a lot of people, as economists, the inequality is very high. And just think, the Narega scheme, right? Mahatma Gandhi Narega scheme. I mean, children born in those families, the parents are getting a job once, only for 100 days a year. So what are those children going to do 25 years from now? I leave you with that question. What kind of food will they eat? What kind of health care will they have? And how proud they will be to be Indians in 2047? What incomes will they be making? What is the job? What is the skills that they will get? Out there in the bottom of the pile in the villages, what kind of income will they make? Chances are that unless we independent groups step in, it's not going to work. Okay. I do have a separate NGO which we are just about to launch in India, and it will be on LinkedIn and so on. It is aimed at solving some of these problems, but I don't want to talk about it here. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you will see it's called Ecotech, ECOTECH. It's trying to throw technology, ecology, and economy at small towns in India to create jobs there for people who cannot have jobs in the villages. So we are making an effort on that account. But, India is so big. Anybody's effort is a small fraction of the problem. So we need multiple players in there to do the work. So that's what I would say in terms of the final words, that look, enjoy yourself, make good money, have good careers, have pleasant lives, but don't forget that the rest of India is also there. They are there, and you cannot be a superpower with 30% of your people. Right now, 25% of India's children are stunted in growth. They are so far below on height and weight, and stunted has a definition in terms of height and weight. And if they are so far below in height and weight, how do you think they will become nutritionally developed? Their brains will develop, their bodies will develop. what kind of work they can do, what kind of jobs they can have, and what kind of money can they make, and how can they even become part of a prosperous, well-to-do country. So, in short, keep your eyes on 2047. One last statement I'll make. The main aim of all politicians around the world, and I'm not picking out any party, is to win the next election. And that's coming in a few years. So politicians by nature think of the short run and the medium term. Today you see in the US, Trump is every day saying, I'll give this tax break to you, I'll give this tax break to this, I'll give the tax break to that. Why? Because he wants their votes. Buy a car, I'll give you a tax break. Do this, I'll give you a tax break. It's all over the world, the same. Politicians just want to win the next election. So they can talk of 2047 or anything like that, but they cannot focus on it because it's 25 years. Right? I did write my non-official India Development Goals 2047, and they are only in some 11 goals, and I'm going to create a book about it with merging my old book of 2047, which was mainly addressed in constraints. Now I will actually be thinking of goals, and my target audience is young people like you. To see, look, this is how we are going to grow to prosperity or to well-off country by 2047. Today, we do have it for 20-30% of the elite in big cities. It's a good life, happy, but there's a huge proportion that is not there. So don't forget that. And keep in mind that politicians are not thinking 2047. No politician, no matter what they talk. The next talk is what will happen in Maharashtra elections. We have just finished Haryana elections. Okay, we are done. What about Maharashtra? Okay, fine. That's the main job of every political party. I'm not blaming out one. Shall we win this one? After that, West Bengal, then what? So we are a democracy. In democracy, we have to have elections. And the main job of politicians is to win the next one. You are not politicians. And you may not ever become politicians. Keep in mind that we don't have much time for 2047. It's actually around the corner. And you are responsible to partially to your own capabilities to make India prosperous by 2047. So that's the final word. That you who are the privileged, educated, well-off people, you are partially responsible. And I'm doing my bit by empowering you on Vidpeds. I invite all of you to do Vidpeds with me because it's hollow to talk to young people and say, hey, you have the responsibility, but please keep quiet. So when I say to you, you have the responsibility, I'd say, listen, I will listen to you. So I invite all of you to send me requests on LinkedIn, connections on LinkedIn, and to do a Vidped with me because I have to empower you. I cannot give you a responsibility without empowering you. Okay? So that's my last word, and let me stop here.
Thank you so much. Those were really amazing words that you said. Reminds me of that quote, right? That if you want to go far, you have to walk together. So it was really an amazing experience to have you here. It was an amazing discussion, and thank you so much again for being here. I hope we can stay in touch, and when your book is done, let us know. We would love to give a shout out to you on our social media page because
all right.
I
well,
think
the first thing that will be out is the formation of my NGO, which should happen, and the website, which should happen in 4 weeks because our name is already registered. We have a draft website. We have a work plan in West Bengal in one town. We are going to Odisha in December, early December. We are going to Rajasthan. After that, I will not go anywhere. I'm a thinker. Okay, I don't do practical things. Even when we went to the villages, people said, Subodh, you just sit there and listen. I said, yeah, that's the main thing. I don't do anything. You guys, you do, but I'm telling you, what we need to do. Okay, so I will have these, my two main activities coming up are, actually I have three, since I'm getting a chance to blow my own horn. My NGO, Ecotech, coming up soon and becoming operational. My book on India, goals for 2047. And I've not decided whether it will have an expanded section on adaptation to climate change or that will be a separate book.
Okay,
Because
sir.
we didn't talk about change, adaptation to climate change, but let me add that here. As economists, we know that the biggest ever shock to our economy from outside is not the fluctuating oil prices and this and that, which we all know about. It is climate change. That is the biggest external, you are economists, is the exogenous variable, right? And it's going to affect all our endogenous variables. And how do we respond to that so that our endogenous variables, income, jobs, etc., are handled properly? There's not much talk about it. In India, we are still talking, put solar panels, put solar panels. Well, when those solar panels get washed away in a flood, please remember that we have to know that there will be floods and how we live with them. Okay, so let me stop here and thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to young people, and please keep in touch and
Yes,
do
sir,
it.
definitely. And just let us know when the book is out. We'll love to give a shout out so that our students can also go through it.